Our history is old. Very old. It is older than the Empire, older than the Covenant, and maybe even older than the mountains in this area. But it was us, the people of the blood, who founded the Empire. It was the people of the blood who ruled it. And it was the people of the blood who caused its downfall. I'm going in the wrong order. I shouldn't start with the Empire. Although you, Zima, already know this, Aleph will understand much more if I start with the blood. Let me start over. Long ago, there was the Sied, and there was the tradition. Two systems of rules followed by two bloodlines. Both are now called people of the blood. The tradition told one of the bloodlines to wander across the land, living off hunting and foraging. The other bloodline was led by the rules of the Sied. They moved more slowly, moving their cattle as they needed fresh grass. The tradition and the Sied have never been written down, yet they were brought down the generations, unchanged, and in every stage of life, either system had something to say. About birth, about death, about celebration and the mundane. Back then, life was hard, and the rules of the blood were the key to survival. But things changed. In time, both bloodlines settled down together, realizing they could farm and didn't need to move. In time, the campsites became villages, and villages became cities. But cities are chaotic places, and slowly it became difficult to live by the old rules. Even though no one ever spoke about abandoning the old rules, they faded. And then came the dark years. All crops failed, wells dried up, and the blood were forced to leave. Both bloodlines traveled together and lived off of what they could find. But they didn't completely return to the old days. The entire time, they hoped they would find a new place to settle and rebuild their cities. But that would take very long. Longer than most normal people could ever hope to live, and longer still. Eventually they found land up north, with cold, harsh winters, but bright and mild summers, perfect for farming. And they settled down. What? No, I wasn't there.
There isn't anyone alive today who has even met anyone who was alive back then. Even though we live long enough to see the river change its course. It was that long ago.
Right. I'm only telling what was told to me. However, I do remember the first city, although when it was already very old and already the center of the empire. Today it has a different name, but then it was just called Yus, light in our language. It started when I was still quite young. I had lived my entire life according to the Sied, and had just been awarded the title as High Priestess.
Du måste vara Monem? Oj då. Jag menar inte att skrämma dig.
Du ska veta att det där var kejsarens salva. Här ska jag förklara för honom att jag kufanades om kol av...
Jag tror han förlåter dig.
Hiers majestät, jag ber om nåd, snuka mig trots min återvlätt.
Jag sa ju att du är förlåten. Det var ju jag som sprang in i det, eller hur?
Tekniskt sett, jag ers majestät.
Bra. Nu när vi har det avklarat, kom.
Men salvan?
Jag sa till att någon städar upp. Kom nu.
Är det hon?
Monet, låt mig introducera till blodets moder. Min fru, Solfrid.
Det är en Ara.
Välkommen till Jus. Är detta din första gång här?
Första gången i halva skottet, ja. Jag har varit i templet med mina systrar en gång.
Jag är säker på att det kommer gå galant. Har du mött de andra prästinnorna i slottet än?
Nej, i er snad?
Jag själv är inte särskilt intresserad av de gamla sätten. Men jag är säker på att min man vill höra allt om det. God kväll.
Jag ber om ursäkt för det där. Hon beter sig mycket bättre för det mesta.
Jag märkte ingenting.
Vi bråkade igår och hon har fortfarande inte kommit över det.
Vad handlade det om jag får fråga?
Göra kejsaren. Jag behöver en arvinge. Men Solfrid. Hon är jättevacker som det perfekta parotpapper. Men det har varit en mardröm att vara med henne.
Jag är ledsen att det inte blev som du tänkt dig.
Du är väcka.
Måste gå. That was my first meeting with the Emperor, and in that short moment I had broken at least a dozen rules of the Seed. In just a few minutes, the life I had devoted myself to for 20 years came crashing down. What was I supposed to do? He was my Emperor, father of the blood. I couldn't say no. You're right, I should have told Solfrid of it, but I didn't. The Emperor would meet me after midnight when my duties were finished. It went on for months until one night. I was on my way to talk to him. I wanted him to confess to his wife about the affair. While they were only married on paper, just like you said, Aleph, she still had the right to know. Det är nu eller aldrig.
Vem är hon?
Vad blev det om den gången?
Spela inte dum med mig. Jag vet att du har en annan kvinna.
Jag har inte en aning om vad du pratar om.
Det tog mig ett tag att komma på det. Men alla sena kvällar, smygandet, ljugandet. För Guds skull, jag är din fru. Jag gifte mig med dig. Vem är hon? Det är prästinnan, eller hur? Jag kan inte tro det.
Vad ska du göra åt det?
Jag kommer berätta det för alla.
Snälla, vem skulle du berätta för? Du pratar knappt med någon. Folket har inte sett dig sen vi efter oss.
Du glömmer vem min far är. Han kan sprida ryktet över hela ljus. Om han faktiskt anstränger sig lite kan han sprida ryktet över hela imperiet också. Om kejsarens bedrägliga beteende. Du kommer aldrig att återvinna ditt rykte. Din älskarinna kommer bli utesluten från orden efter att ha brutit mot så många av de gamla lagarna. Och stackars lilla Solfrid, som stod vid sin mans sida, som blev förrådd av sin sanna kärlek. Stackars lilla Solfrid och hennes ofödda barn.
Du är inte...
Hur skulle du veta? Du smög ju alltid iväg. Du har inte spenderat någon tid med mig de senaste 3 veckorna. Hur skulle du veta? Erkänn, du är förlorad. Bara för att du inte kunde hålla dig skinn.
Jag måste få under henne. Vem där?
Kjarr, vad går du? Hennes nåd, var hon?
Du vet ju Udrik skulle göra det. Men vi kan inte riskera att hon avslöjar oss. Mitt rykte skulle fördärvas. Och du skulle bannlysas ur systerskapet. Du måste hjälpa mig. Snälla, Monet.
Are they an order?
Ja.
So we carried her down to the basement and locked her in one of the cells. She woke back up just as we were about to leave, and her screams filled the halls. It was horrible. A day after, Kjarr had us married in secret, thus taking Solfrid's title as Mother of the Blood. It's the highest possible title. The public had only seen Solfrid on their wedding day years ago, so most of the public bought me as their empress. The few who picked up on the differences were summed up as conspirators. I didn't like how it all played out, but as horrible as it may sound, slowly I got used to my new life. Every other week or so the Emperor would check on Solfrid, and one day he brought a child with him. Kjarr named her Zima, and I was told to care for her like my own.
And you did just that.
At the same time, Kjarr started devoting himself to expanding the Empire. He overtook more land by each day until finally he reached the ocean, and plans for a fleet were made. What do you mean, what went wrong? Have I said that something went wrong? This isn't some fairy tale. This is your people's history, and you best listen to it without comparing it to tropes in stories. Well, you're right. This time something did go wrong. I was just getting to that. Something waited under Laius. Something much older than the blood. Maybe as old as the stars up in the sky, and surely just as cruel and cold. It came from a time very unlike ours, when words like life, death, and love didn't yet have a meaning. We had no words to describe it with. It had no form, no will, no purpose. Maybe you can call it a feeling or a thought. We called it midwinter. It crept on us so carefully we barely noticed it. Maybe it was woken by the sounds from the city above it. It woke so slowly that we didn't notice it until it was too late. Or almost too late. Because midwinter crept into the hearts of people, one after another, and it didn't let go. The worst thing is that nothing really changed. Everyone did exactly what they had done before. The weavers wove, the butchers butchered, and the blacksmith kept hammering. Nothing else happened. Those who were taken by midwinter changed utterly and completely, yet not at all. The weaver made just as strong and beautiful fabric, but they all looked the same. Nothing changed. The butcher didn't care about why he butchered, he just did it. He butchered animal after animal, not caring if anyone bought the meat or not, and outside the pile of rotting meat kept growing. No one who had been taken by midwinter showed any amount of feelings, dreams, or hope. They seemed to be the same person. They spoke, they ate, they slept. They laughed at what they had always found funny. They were polite when it was suitable, but their hearts were frozen solid, and they had only one goal: to spread midwinter. It overtook the people, the animals, and even the weather, and while we barely were starting to understand something was wrong, Laius had gained a different name, Kjarr, darkness. And that is the name those who remember it use.
My father grew distant. None of us understood what was going on. Before, he would play with me, sometimes even bring me to the meetings. That all changed. He locked himself inside a room with his generals, furiously working on building a fleet which could expand the empire and thus spread midwinter overseas. The empire was just as cold and cruel as midwinter itself, and it only wanted to grow. Anyone who rebelled was executed. No trial, no warning.
For those of us not under midwinter's control, life had become complicated. Every attempt to fight back could end in death. To live, you needed to make sure no one could tell if you were on your way to succumb or still fighting back. But that made it difficult to tell you who you could trust. We lived in constant fear, each and every one of us alone. Who was the enemy? Where was it coming from? Had everyone fallen, or were there others who still fought against it? No, your father didn't fall for it. I had met him several times. He was the father of the guard, part of the bloodline who lived strictly according to the tradition. Most of the guards don't enter cities, but a special entrance had been made for the Fadir. Your father's responsibility to the Empire was to once a month enter through that gate and feed the blood fire. It was a modified version of the old, and I don't think it was ever made after the fall.
A blood fire is similar to the fire I made. It feeds off of your blood and energy and connects us all, which made it even more important and difficult to hide if you had succumbed to midwinter.
On one such visit, Fadir pulled me aside. Vad vill du, Fadir of Gardet?
Du har inte fallit.
Jag vet inte vad du...
Midwinter, du har inte fallit. Vi har hållit ett öga på dig och din familj.
Vi som i...
Några allierade, både inne i och utanför slottet. Men vi har inte fallit. Vi kämpar fortfarande emot. Och jag vet att du gör det också.
Vad vill du?
Jag vill stoppa det. För det där oss alla. Vad tror du händer om det där på törnen lämnar handen? Förställ dig, inte bara imperiet så här, utan hela världen.
Varför kommer du med om detta?
För att jag behöver din hjälp. Imperiet heter fruset. Det där skölden sprider sig. Det är mycket tag att komma på, men det finns ett sak som förenar oss alla. Elden. Och vem är mittpunkten för allt?
Anklagar du min familj för att?
Nej, inte din familj. Både du och Zima är fria. Men din man...
Försvinn.
Måne, kom igen. Säg inte att du inte har sett symptomen. Jag har hört att han inte har lämnat citron på flera veckor.
Rikten, vad är du hört dig där?
Svikari. Han har testat er alla. Druckit er ur era vanliga vanor. Och det funkade. På alla förutom en.
Kjarr. Vad vill du att jag ska göra? Jag kan inte förrada min man.
Han är inte din man längre. Men du älskade är död. Jag behöver bara lite hjälp. Ta honom till tronsalen. Släpp in mig. Och efter det är gjort, gör mig och Svikari att gömma oss. Imperiet kommer att vara på jakt efter blod och kommer att söka överallt tills de hittar förrädarna. Men med dina krafter har vi en chans.
Vad du ber mig om strider mot varje lag jag har hangivit mitt liv till.
Men Svikari har berättat att det inte är första gången. Eller vad hände med kejsaren Solfrid?
Okej, jag hjälper er. And so I did. I let Fadir in. Svikari already worked in the castle. With the knife you brought, we entered Midwinter for good. Or at least I thought so. I really thought it was gone forever, but this winter reminds me so much about how it all started. The life-draining cold, identical snowflakes, the Emperor's men roaming the woods. All signs point to the fact that Midwinter is coming back. I just don't know what its return means. I need to talk to Brynjar before anything. I'm expecting he should be here in a few days to see you two. No more questions, Aleph. Sleep. We'll talk more in the morning.